Mistaken identity, when informants look like criminals. In the covert world of criminal investigations, the line between law enforcement and criminality is often blurred. Police officers and federal informants tasked with infiltrating gangs and cartels must adopt the behaviors, language, and appearance of the very people they are trying to dismantle. This paradoxical strategy, while effective in gathering intelligence and securing convictions, has led to a troubling phenomenon. Informants and undercover agents are frequently mistaken for gang members or cartel operatives. This confusion isn't just a matter of optics, it has real consequences for public trust, legal accountability, and the safety of those involved. The role of informants in law enforcement. Confidential informants, CIS, are individuals who provide information to law enforcement agencies about criminal activity, often in exchange for leniency in their own legal cases or financial compensation. These informants are a cornerstone of modern policing, especially in investigations involving organized crime, drug trafficking, and violent gangs. Federal agencies like the FBI, DEA, and ATF rely heavily on informants to gain access to insular criminal networks that are otherwise difficult to penetrate. Informants are often recruited from within the criminal world. They may be former gang members, drug dealers, or individuals facing serious charges who agree to cooperate in exchange for reduced sentences. Because of their background, they already possess the street credibility needed to move within these circles. However, to maintain their cover and avoid suspicion, informants must continue to act like criminals, sometimes even participating in illegal activities under the supervision or tacit approval of law enforcement. Undercover agents, walking the tightrope. Unlike informants, undercover agents are trained law enforcement officers who assume false identities to infiltrate criminal organizations. These agents undergo extensive preparation, including learning the language, customs, and behaviors of the groups they are targeting. They may live among gang members for months or even years, building trust and gathering evidence. The goal is to become indistinguishable from the criminals they are investigating. This deep immersion comes with significant risks. Undercover agents must constantly balance their law enforcement duties with the need to maintain their cover. They may witness or even participate in criminal acts, raising ethical and legal questions about the extent to which law enforcement can condone such behavior. Moreover, the psychological toll of living a double life can be immense, leading to stress, identity confusion, and long-term trauma. Behavioral mimicry and cultural immersion. One of the primary reasons informants and undercover agents are mistaken for gang members is their deliberate mimicry of criminal behavior. To gain trust, they must adopt the dress codes, slang, and mannerisms of the group. This includes wearing gang colors, using coded language, and engaging in rituals or activities that signal loyalty. In some cases, informants may be required to commit minor crimes, such as drug purchases or theft, to prove their allegiance. This cultural immersion is essential for survival. Criminal organizations are notoriously suspicious and often test new members to weed out potential informants. Failure to convincingly play the role can result in exposure, violence, or death. As a result, informants and agents become deeply embedded in the criminal lifestyle, making it difficult for outsiders, including other law enforcement officers, to distinguish them from actual criminals. Lack of transparency and oversight. Another factor contributing to mistaken identity is the lack of transparency surrounding informant operations. Law enforcement agencies are often reluctant to disclose the use of informants, even to other branches of government, or within their own departments. This secrecy is intended to protect the informant's identity and ensure the integrity of ongoing investigations. However, it also creates confusion and mistrust. In some cases, informants have been arrested by police officers unaware of their status. Others have been targeted by rival gangs or vigilantes who believe they are legitimate criminals. The lack of clear guidelines and communication can lead to dangerous misunderstandings, undermining the effectiveness of law enforcement and putting lives at risk. Legal and ethical gray areas. The use of informants raises complex legal and ethical questions. While informants are valuable tools for gathering intelligence, their involvement in criminal activity, sanctioned or otherwise, can complicate prosecutions and erode public trust. Courts have struggled to define the limits of acceptable behavior for informants, especially when their actions contribute to violence or drug distribution. Some informants have been accused of escalating criminal operations under the guise of gathering evidence. In high-profile cases, informants have played central roles in drug trafficking rings, only to later testify against their co-conspirators. This has led to criticism that law enforcement is enabling crime rather than preventing it. The Attorney General's guidelines for undercover operations emphasize the need for oversight and accountability, but enforcement is inconsistent and often opaque. Public perception and media representation. The portrayal of informants and undercover agents in media has further muddied the waters. Films and television shows often glamorize the undercover lifestyle, depicting agents as heroic figures who navigate dangerous worlds with skill and bravado. While these portrayals can raise awareness of the challenges faced by law enforcement, they also contribute to unrealistic expectations and misunderstandings. In reality, informants are often vulnerable individuals caught between competing loyalties. They may face threats from both the criminal organizations they infiltrate and the law enforcement agencies they serve. Their actions are not always noble, and their motivations can be complex. The media's tendency to simplify these narratives can obscure the ethical dilemmas and real-world consequences of informant operations. Case studies: when mistaken identity turns deadly. There have been numerous cases where informants and undercover agents were mistaken for criminals, with tragic results. In some instances, informants were killed by gang members who discovered their true identity. In others, they were arrested or assaulted by police officers unaware of their role. These incidents highlight the dangers of operating in secrecy and the need for better communication and safeguards. One notable example is the case of Rachel Hoffman, a 23-year-old college student who was recruited as an informant by police in Florida. Hoffman was sent to buy drugs and a gun from two suspected dealers, but the operation went awry, and she was murdered. Her death sparked national outrage and led to changes in how informants are managed, including the implementation of Rachel's Law, which requires police to provide better training and oversight for informant operations. The psychological toll on informants. Living a double life takes a significant psychological toll. Informants often experience anxiety, paranoia, and depression as they navigate dangerous environments and conceal their true identity. The constant fear of exposure can lead to chronic stress and emotional instability. In some cases, informants develop substance abuse problems or engage in self-destructive behavior as a coping mechanism. Law enforcement agencies provide limited support for informants, who are often viewed as disposable assets rather than individuals with complex needs. Once their usefulness has ended, informants may be left to fend for themselves, facing retaliation from criminal organizations and struggling to reintegrate into society. This lack of support underscores the ethical challenges of using informants and the need for more humane policies. Informants and community relations. The presence of informants can also strain relationships between law enforcement and the communities they serve. In neighborhoods with high levels of gang activity, residents may be wary of police tactics that rely on secrecy and deception. The use of informants can create an atmosphere of suspicion, where individuals fear that their friends or neighbors may be secretly cooperating with law enforcement. This erosion of trust can hinder community policing efforts and make it more difficult to build partnerships that are essential for crime prevention. Critics argue that law enforcement should prioritize transparency and collaboration over covert operations, especially in marginalized communities that have historically been subjected to aggressive policing. Moving forward, balancing effectiveness and ethics. The use of informants and undercover agents is unlikely to disappear. These tactics remain essential for combating organized crime and gathering intelligence. However, there is a growing recognition that reforms are needed to address the ethical and practical challenges of clandestine operations. Law enforcement agencies must implement clearer guidelines for informant behavior, ensure proper oversight, and provide support for individuals who risk their lives to aid investigations. Transparency and accountability should be prioritized to prevent mistaken identity and protect the rights of all involved. Public education and media literacy can also help dispel myths and foster a more nuanced understanding of the role of informants in law enforcement. Conclusion: a necessary illusion. Informants and undercover agents operate in a world of deception, where the line between law enforcement and criminality is deliberately blurred. Their ability to mimic gang members and cartel operatives is both their greatest asset and their most dangerous liability. As society grapples with the ethical implications of these tactics, it must also confront the reality that mistaken identity is not just a theoretical concern, it's a matter of life and death. By acknowledging the risks and complexities of informant operations, we can begin to build a more transparent and accountable system, one that respects the rule of law while recognizing the human cost of clandestine policing.